Travis Lofke here with the Human Upgrade Project. Before we get into tonight's show, we're going to have a cup of coffee, or just a sip. And as always, we're going to begin tonight's episode. We're going to try to keep this to 13 minutes because that's what I'm trying to do, so I'm going to talk a little faster than normal and maybe not. So to start, random squared. 3 interesting random factoids for you tonight to improve your intelligence or just give you something odd to think about. Number 1, in 2006, a Coca-Cola employee offered the Pepsi company the secret recipe for Coca-Cola. Pepsi actually responded by notifying Coca-Cola about it. So that's kind of cool. Kind of cool. I actually prefer, if I'm going to drink Coke or Pepsi, which I don't, but rarely, once a year or something, I prefer Coke over Pepsi. I don't know. Factoid number 2. The famous line in Titanic from Leonardo DiCaprio, that famous line, "I'm king of the world," was apparently totally improvised and was not part of the script. Number 3. Oh, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, right? As always, if you don't want to listen to the interesting factoids and you're watching this on a replay, just fast forward 2 or 3 minutes in and you can skip this part. But, number 3. Apparently my keyframes are bad on YouTube, so this might be a mess on there, but oh well. Number 3. A single strand of spaghetti is called spaghetto. I'm going to do a quick change here, 4 seconds or less. I'm going to change this, see if that messes anything up or not. We'll find out here quickly. Maybe I'll have to redo this. I don't know. Just kind of threw this together last minute. So, we're right on time. Let's begin. Travis Lofke here with the Human Upgrade Project, where we dissect and deconstruct what it takes and what it means, and how to be remarkable and extraordinary as human beings. Because haven't you ever wondered, like some people appear or are so extraordinary and remarkable, and what do they do, and how do they do it? That's what we're going to find out eventually. And when we start actually analyzing specific individuals. But what we'll be doing tonight is going through a little thing that I realized in tonight's episode number 40, 3 ways to leverage tech and avoid being a moron. It's an acronym, ACT, A-C-T. Because does technology amplify your intelligence or your lack of intelligence? You can do both. I'm sure you've experienced that. Watching others and possibly yourself. I know myself at times, I'm like, oh, let me look that up on my phone. And it's something simple, like how to spell the word "the." Okay, maybe not that bad. But the reason I was thinking about this is because I'm using this app. If you haven't heard of this app, there's an app called Voxer. I have a hair or something in my mouth. This is quite annoying. Anyways, there's this app called Voxer. It's like a walkie-talkie app. You can like leave voice messages back and forth with other people. It's great. It's actually really, really interesting. The one thing I noticed is that sometimes the messages get kind of long. And sometimes, oh, I found it. Oh. That's like having something in your eye, right? And you're just like, I can't find it, I can't get it out, but I got it out. Anyways, using this app called Voxer. And what I realized about this app was there's a couple things that could be good or bad, right? The downside is you're just talking to your phone all the time. You're not actually getting any human interaction. That's not good. The upside, though, if you've used Voxer or used any type of voice messaging apps, if you haven't realized it, the upside of that is when you get the longer messages, or whenever you don't get the longer messages, if you're trying to be cognizant of the other person's time, you need to be more on point with what you're talking about. And you need to pay attention more when somebody is leaving you a message, especially if it's a long one, so you don't have to go back and re-listen to it to address any of the questions or any of the concerns or anything that they were talking about in there. So you're having a conversation, but it's a delayed conversation, so it requires you to remember more and think more while you're doing it. That is one way that you can leverage technology to keep from being a moron, right? However, if you're always doing that, you're relying on technology so much that your social skills will go out the freaking window because you're so used to talking to your phone or your app or whatever instead of actually communicating with live human beings. So I've been leveraging like this, Facebook Lives, YouTube Lives. I use this specifically to help improve my speaking ability in the area of getting my point across as succinctly as possible in a way that hopefully benefits somebody out there so that they can become an upgraded version of themselves, an upgraded human, to become more remarkable and more extraordinary. And that's how I'm using Voxer now. I actually don't mind when somebody leaves me a long message because it forces me to use my brain and remember what they said and then respond to them accordingly in my message. If you really want to push the limits, listen to the message, go do a task, and respond like 10 minutes later or half an hour later or whatever. And that's where people and I in the beginning would get lazy and be like, well, it's recorded. I'll just listen to it again if I don't remember or I'll write stuff down. I'll type stuff out, write stuff down, whatever, make notes. That's just lazy. The best way to do this, actually, let me get into another example. Speed reading. So there's a lot of speed reading apps out there, and I was playing with the speed reading app once, and it would highlight the words. And you get it on your phone, you can get them on your computer. It highlights the words, and it flashes them on the screen. And I got pretty good at that. The problem with it was I got really good at reading using the app. And it helped my reading skills in actual physical books also. But in actual physical books or anything else where you have printed material or you're reading a document and you don't have your fancy app to put it in, to flash the words up there, you basically are just training yourself to read better, quicker, faster, and training your brain to retain more information in that specific pattern of how the information is being presented to you. So if you go to another platform, another book, another ebook, another whatever, and it's not presented in that same way, then you're not retaining the information as easily, as quickly. I'm not saying it doesn't help. I'm just saying that if you're training your brain in one way to specifically do a task, and you think that that's going to carry over 100% into all the other areas of how you use that skill, like reading, it won't. Sorry to burst your bubble. I'm relying on that data from those apps. Having an app that flashes words on the screen that you're able to comprehend and remember and go through, like in a speed reading app, and then telling somebody you can read 1,000 words a minute, is not the same as actually sitting down and reading 1,000 words a minute. That's where the moron part comes in. If you can't tell the difference between actually how you're being trained in one area and how it carries over into another area, bordering on moron status. Just my opinion, but try it. It's like driving on an old dirt road. And like, good example, growing up, I grew up on a ranch. Those of you of them watching the episodes, you know that. There were times when we would pick up hay or do certain things, and there'd be ruts. And since I was just a little kid, I would put the truck in granny gear. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a standard transmission, first gear, big truck, drives really slow. Basically, you don't have to do anything. It just drives. But when you're in ruts, you can get out and it just goes because it's not going to get out of the ruts. And that's what training your brain or training anything, even physically, like in powerlifting, if you're only training squat and not training anything else or whatever. You're really good at that one thing, driving in that rut, learning in that rut, thinking in that rut, then you're really good at going down that path. As soon as you get out of there, you're just all over the road. So, the third, here's another one, and I'll get into the acronym here in just a second. Another really, this example is probably one of the best ones. Sleep apps. I think they're super beneficial depending on what you use. Based on the studies that I've read and the information that I have, they're only typically about 60% accurate. They're probably more accurate than that now because things are upgrading all the time and updating, and I'm not sure, like the Oura Ring and things like that. About 60%. Maybe they're 70% now. Still, it's not 100% accurate because they can't tell you how you feel. They can just monitor your vital signs. I have friends that meditate regularly, and their sleep apps, their wearable apps and things that they use regularly think that they're sleeping when they're meditating. So it's recording the data incorrectly unless they correct it and they're able to note it in the app. The funny thing is, I know people that have sleep problems or whatever, or want to sleep better, and they get an app and then they wake up in the morning and they get some sleep score. And it's all about the sleep score. Oh, I got it. My sleep score was only 30. I don't know if that's good or bad because I don't have any sleep apps that I wear or anything, but let's say it's bad. So they don't think about actually how they slept and how they feel and the routine they went through before they went to bed and the routine they had in the morning when they got up, nighttime routine, morning routine, what they ate during the day and all of that. They look at the thing and they say, oh, it says 30, that's bad. Doesn't make sense because I, for one, sleep less than what all the science says. Those of you that know me know that. If I sleep more, if I sleep as much as, quote, science says you're supposed to, I actually function worse, mentally and physically. So while the apps are very beneficial, you have to calibrate them with where you're at in what you're doing, right? You have to pay attention to what's going on. And that's where we get into the acronym ACT. And I literally just came up with this. I'll probably come up with a better one. I love acronyms. They're great. A in ACT is aware. Be aware. Be aware of what you're doing. And then 2 is compare the results. Compare results and then change if needed. Experiment with different scenarios, different example. Wake up in the morning, you're aware, I don't feel that good. My sleep app says this. Okay, cool. I'm going to compare, now that I'm aware of how I feel and what this technology is telling me, let's compare that to another day when the app said I slept well or I felt really good and felt like I got enough sleep. Let's compare that. Let's not just rely on a piece of technology to tell you whether or not you're good. Because then you lose all of your creative problem solving. That's one of the biggest things that I've noticed a lot of times is people will rely so heavily on the results that some piece of technology gives them, they forget to actually use their brain and think about and compare and contrast the different things that are going on in their life and what's happening, stress, food, water, all the basic, simple things that you can look at. Number 3 is track, right? The T in act. Track what it, and the app will track it. Yes, great. Whoop-de-doo, you got data that says one thing, data that says another thing. Perfect. But that data doesn't tell you, again, how you feel. It tells you a number that it came up with based on how the app was programmed, how the thing was programmed. Just like the sleep, or just like the speed reading. Gives you a number based on how fast the things are flashing on the screen or whatever. If you're not tracking that along with that's the quantitative side. If you don't have a qualitative side, meaning the feeling side of what you're doing, then you're not going to get the results you want. Just like the 10,000 steps thing. People, all these apps, I got my 10,000 steps in. Yay. I get my 10,000 steps in about every 2 weeks. Like over 2 weeks. Because a lot of times they're just going for tracking in the number of steps they got versus actually paying attention to the process around and behind and everything else that it's needed to, because most people are doing the 10,000 steps, right? They want to get fit. They want to lose weight. They want to whatever. But they probably have an app for that too. So you have to learn how to be a creative problem solver without the app, but while using the app at the same time, if that makes sense. So, quick recap. I actually made these bullet points. I was pretty happy I came up with this like right away and just like jumped on here. They're getting better and better. Recap. How to leverage tech to keep from being a moron. Use the acronym ACT. Be aware of what's going on. Not just be aware of what the app says. Be aware of yourself, your internal and even external environment. Like, I don't know, maybe your filters need cleaned in your air conditioner or your heater and it's blowing dirt and dust in the house. External, right? Causing internal problems. Maybe you ate something different. Maybe you whatever. Take that data from the quantitative data from the app and the qualitative data of what you're keeping track of, which is step 3, and put those together to see what the correlation is between those two. And that's where the track comes in, right? Track it. Because then you can go back and look at it, and eventually you don't have to track and do all, it just becomes part of what you do and part of who you are, and that's the whole point of upgrading. And then when you do make a change, it's like, I better start tracking this again, because I will track, cool, and then maybe I'll make minor adjustments or whatever, and I just know what's happening, and I'm paying attention to what's going on, I'm aware, and then I'm compare, and then I'm tracking, and then I'll continue that. And then when I make another adjustment, I do the whole process again. I have another process that's a lot more involved, but just thinking about it and being aware of it makes a huge difference. You can talk to anyone out there who does any kind of biohacking or hacking or any type of human optimization, and they'll tell you the same thing. You can't just like expect magic to happen without putting in a little work. And that's it. I missed my 13-minute mark, but that'll happen. And no friends on tonight. So if you did watch this till the end, as always, like, share, comment, ask me some questions. If you want me to clarify something, ask me to clarify something. I'm happy to, because by clarifying something, it means that you're thinking about it, you're paying attention, and it gives me the opportunity to rephrase things to be more concise and be better at getting my point across so that it is actually beneficial for you instead of me just talking to this inanimate computer. That's all I've got for tonight. We're getting more consistent. We're getting better every day. So eventually I will have a set time to do these, and it's going to be even more betterer. Betterer is a word. It's better, but it's easier to say betterer. Anyways, have an amazing day, because as you know, it's better than the alternative.